So for those of you who have not met me before, I'm Suzanne Guest. Something like about 8 years ago, I decided that I wanted to do a doctorate. Especially after having that cancer experience I referred to before. As part of that, I did my dissertation, and you know, I was really clear that I was not going to stand in, quote unquote, the mouth of the dragon, which is what your dissertation is, the mouth of the dragon. And I wasn't going to spend 4 years, probably, on anything negative. And I reflected on my cancer experience, and what came to the fore was a moment in time when I was with my support group, and it was pouring rain, you know, classic Vancouver weather. It was pouring rain, dark night, fireplace going, and this group of women laughing hysterically. Okay? And I can remember clearly saying to myself, those women are really courageous. And then I stopped for a minute, and I sort of went, that must mean I'm courageous. And you know, that moment stayed with me. And so when I got to do my dissertation, I decided I would investigate courage, because it seemed like such a mystery to me. At the time, not very many people were writing about courage. Even though you would read about biographies and about, you know, special people, CEOs, very successful folks, and they would all say that courage was the #1 trait that stands behind everything else. But when you start to look at what is it, it becomes very difficult to define. As a result of my research, I came up with a couple of conclusions. And one is that courage is one of those traits, elements, energies that has been sublimated. So it's not okay for you to be courageous unless I tell you you're courageous. Now, isn't that a strange phenomena? Courage is also very much tied to how you define a man. Okay? And of course, men are in leadership positions. And you know, here I am doing my OD thing. And so my dissertation was on courage, leadership, and change initiatives. When I was reflecting on how I wanted to apply that material to the whole idea of succession planning, I went back to another experience I had, because I want to build off of what Lisa's talked about. That's a magical system if you can put it in place. Okay, complicated. The pump needs to be primed, but once it's primed, boy, does it ever pay off. Unfortunately, in BC, we have less than 200 organizations that have more than 300 or 400 people working at them. So first of all, that means you can get your arms around them. But secondly, there's not very many organizations in BC who are willing to do that kind of work. So what you see with succession planning most of the time is CEOs and other people in leadership positions is sort of the one-off thing. I have a story to tell about a process I'm still very proud of that went on between two leaders. One guy in a very senior VP position who didn't get the job. Okay, he'd been holding the job for almost 2 years. When they went to fill it permanently, they hired somebody else. He and I had been talking for quite a while about OD stuff. And so we decided, and here's where his courage comes in, we decided to try something really different and new. The process that we ran was, first of all, we got permission from the new person who was coming into the VP position to come to a workshop. It was a 2-day workshop. The way it worked out in the end, the old VP was there. The first day, the new VP was there. His staff got to say all kinds of wonderful things. They got to talk about what they were trying to achieve, the goals that the department had set, and what they most appreciated about his leadership style, and also some of the gaps that were present for them. They gave him a gift, and he left. Now, I can't I don't know what you guys have been through, but I can't imagine doing that for my staff. These people I really cared about, and somehow I didn't get the job. That took enormous courage for that man to do that much. It was also very courageous on the part of the new guy coming in. Guess what? He had a really different leadership style. Really, really different. And he needed to be able to say to those people, okay, here's the performance expectations, here's what I've seen you do, here's what I've heard you talk about in day one. I don't know. I don't have enough information yet. I'll be scheduling a series of appointments, and we'll be talking about A, B, C, D, and E. But just so you know, here's how I like to do things. And they had a whole conversation about their expectations as that bridge occurred. The 2-day workshop was over, and then I informally coached the VP who stayed. Okay, and the other guy got another job, went on to other things. So for me, that's a wonderful example of a place in life of an organization where you're leading change initiatives. And by the way, the reason why the old guy didn't get it and the new guy did was on paper, it looked like this man was very change oriented. Looking back at things, it turned out that he wasn't. Okay, that was the way he wanted to be, and that's the way he presented himself. Okay, and he was able to take the story of his career and tell that story. But as we all got to know him, we began to realize that, in fact, he didn't have the set of skills either. But everyone, talk about creating a trust environment. I interviewed all the staff before they came into the session. They knew exactly what was going to happen in the session. They were able to speak as much as they felt comfortable speaking to a brand new person. I know that courage is the difference between people's success in business and not being successful. When I did the interviews of the people that I got to make into co-researchers, it was very clear, and they said over and over again that they wish they had been in touch with their courage earlier in their career, because there was so much more they would have done. And that's why they appreciated being part of the study, because we held a series of sessions. They got to ask themselves a lot of questions. We did interviews, fed back the information. They got in touch with just how courageous they were. And when there's some more new research out that's beginning to demonstrate that, in fact, all of us are courageous. But for some mysterious reason, social reason, I think, it's not been okay for people to say, I'm a courageous person, here's what I stand for. We're beginning to see some of it come out in new songs. It's one of the things I track, is what's the stories in the hit parade. Okay, for the last 5 years, 10 years even, it's all been about poor me. Okay, but there's a series of songs that have started to come out in the last 3 years that have been about how we're strong and how we need to move forward, okay, and how I'm here for you. So we're beginning to see a kind of, in the underground, a social shift. When I come back and I think of succession planning, okay, succession planning usually, not, albeit not the system stuff, which is terribly important and incredibly valuable. It needs to also be supported by how you make those one-on-one moments occur. If you've got a family succession initiative going on, family-run business, which is what The vast majority of businesses in BC are family-oriented. Most of those people don't want to think about what's going to happen next. Okay? All they can think about is the losses. And you know, the theory that is most useful for me at that point is the William Bridges material. Okay, so I'm looking at a lot of people nodding their heads. So, you know, William Bridges talks about that there are 3 steps that people have to go through whenever they're dealing with a loss. Let me ask you, what kind of losses are we likely to see when people leave and new people come? What are the kinds of losses for the people who are leaving? Loss of relationships? Yeah, there's a familiarity to your day. Your trust, yes, sure, because within the family dynamics, you know, there's family systems theory talks about all those wonderful family dynamics that can occur. Loss of focus, yes. Very often they haven't done any kind of planning at all. Okay, so you come along and they decide they're going to hire you. In the end, it comes down to people need to act. And when you fail to act, if you fail to act in a war situation, what do they call you? It can be more than that. Some people collapse, literally collapse, in the face of difficult situations. But other people somehow find the gumption inside themselves to move forward. So your guess, what's that magical, mysterious thing called courage that lets them act? What would you say it is? Yes?
I don't know if it's really keep going, but for me, that helps me act is when I actually actively seek clarity.
Yes.
And I start planning.
Yep. Yes. Yeah. Yes. So all those planning activities enable courage. Okay? And that's why, you know, we do what we do in OD. A whole lot of what we're involved in is with really great focus, clarification, all that stuff. Yeah.
I think then where a lot of in country times, a lot of the courage comes from is people's values and living the values that they have.
Yes. So if you are clear about what your core values are, that helps enormously to step forward. One of my interviewers said to us that it's not the first step that defines courage. It's taking the second step, knowing that the first step was into really deep water, and it was really cold, and it was really uncomfortable, but you had to do it anyway. Okay, I think that's good.
I think it's being clear about the personal loss, what it is exactly that you're risking. You know, I equate courage with a hero archetype, and a hero always loses or is willing to lose something, but they're clear about what that is.
Right.
They're very, very clear about what that is.
Yeah.
When you're walking that risk line as a CEO,
Yeah.
and I have,
Yeah.
you know what's at risk.
Yes. Yes, and coming up with an answer that works for you. I had 2 people, two presidents of 2 different companies who had to do the same thing. They had to lay off 200 people. Okay, one was in healthcare, one was in finance. One battled against the layoffs. Okay, the other one did not battle, encouraged it, facilitated it, made it work. Okay, those choices, those decisions were both right. Okay, it took enormous courage inside themselves to go in and have that internal discussion, and then take the action. But you have to take the action. Yes.
I was just going to add that I'm reflecting on a leadership program that I'm a part of with eBay. And one of the things that we actually talk about with all the participants, and these are high potential leaders, is courage, so the courage to act. I think one of the things that helps is when the leaders set the tone for the expectation that we need you to do this. it's all well and good to say that I should act on my values, but many times we see people don't do that if they feel it's not safe.
Yes.
So how do we create the conditions? What part can the leaders play in actually setting the tone? And I can tell you to have the SVP of HR get up there and say, you know what, we need you to have courage to speak out. We want to hear. We need to have your voices, and then we actually train them on a process to do that.
Right.
I think it just makes it that much easier
Yeah.
for them to step in and take that first step.
Yes. William Bridges, one of the things that William Bridges, we're running out of time, so I'm just going to throw some more stuff in here. William Bridges talks about how we define courage, and it's true. Most of us would define courage as the courage to hang on to something. Okay. For him, it's the courage to let go. Okay, it's the courage to know that, yes, this is going to happen, and I don't know what the final solution is, because that's the neutral zone. And you know, the neutral zone is a place when you know you can't be what you were, but you don't know what you're going to be next. Okay? Some people thrive in that and some people do not. But to be open to it is where development occurs, at least according to Bridges. I think I want to close by saying that courage is a muscle that you can use. You all have courage. So how do you get in touch with your courage? The first thing you do is just go back and remember a time when you thought you were courageous. And tell that story to someone. Okay? Just chew it over a little bit. Remember and get in touch with that, yep, you were courageous right then and there. And then remember another time. And then test yourself. See if there's some place, I'll bet you, every person here is sitting on something that if only they would do it, if only you would do it, it would magically transform your life. Well, you just don't go up for that great big whatever it is. Okay? You creep up on it. It's okay. You can creep up. Okay? Build a muscle. Hang on to your muscle. And it will serve you really well. Thank you.